Welcome back to World Ablaze with George Fonts. This episode, I'm going to touch on the continued chaos and rhetoric and further divisive nature of the opposing political parties, those who feel that they are a part of Team Blue, Team Red, all over Charlie Kirk's assassination. A lot of people think that they are forensic scientists, that they somehow have inside info as to what happened. To be quite honest, I believe this whole thing has been a shit show. Everything from the FBI investigations, from mixed messages from Kash Patel himself. We have the guy. We don't have the guy. The gun that was used. Some people are saying that when the shooter jumped down from the roof, there's no way that he had the gun. Others are saying he broke the gun down. Other people who know this particular weapon are saying, well, that rifle's not so easy to break down. And on top of that, why would he jump off the roof? Or basically within less than 2 minutes, 2 seconds, whatever it is. I mean, after the shot, had to run away, get out of there, right? So would take the time to break down this weapon, pack it up, run off the roof, run into the woods, put the weapon back together, and leave it in the woods to be found, reassembled. Again, more conspiracies, more theories and whatnot that really are meant to keep you confused. And to be honest, even what we're getting from the experts is confusing. There's video that has been released by people who are in the crowds. So this is where we're solely getting our information from. Bystanders, people who are filming the event with their cell phones. But yet we're not seeing the footage from CCTV, from security cameras. This was at a University of Utah, or a university in Utah. And I'll tell you firsthand that I know that every educational institution, from kindergarten all the way up to university level, has a tremendous amount of cameras all over the place. Yet no footage has been released, at least none released to the public. There were cameras in Charlie Kirk's tent. Immediately within the vicinity, front row seat, getting everything that happened. There was a couple of cameras behind him. One in front of him that was very close. That was manned by an operator. We haven't seen any footage from those cameras. And in fact, what is fueling the conspiracies here is immediately after shots rang out, Charlie Kirk slumped over, fell to his death. Those cameras were packed up. People entered what would be the crime scene, started taking memorabilia, etc. There was no control. And there's no way you can tell me there wasn't law enforcement there. He had his own security detail, and I'm telling you for a fact that universities have their own actual police force. And with a person of Charlie Kirk's stature in terms of popularity and fame, as much as he wanted to be amongst the people, I guarantee this for a fact, because I deal with universities when it comes to large-scale events. There is always, doesn't matter if it's a big artist, a very well-known, world-renowned artist, if it's a poet, a painter, doesn't matter. There's security. There are meetings regarding the security of these events. And there for sure as hell are campus security. Actually, police officers. That's the other thing. These campus security at these universities, higher educational facilities, are sworn police officers. Where were they? Where are the reports from them? It's getting hard to not call this a conspiracy. I actually put that into one of my posts on X, actually responding to Owen Schroyer, which I've never really followed before, never cared, to be quite honest, until his fallout with Alex Jones. I'm kind of paying attention to him a bit more. he's a let's just say he thrives on conspiracy, and he has a lot of opinions regarding Israel and the Jews. But in this case, I'm starting to agree with even him. It's getting harder to not call this a conspiracy or a cover up. The way this whole thing has been handled, it's been atrocious, been abhorrent for sure. And I'm going to touch on some of that. Even J.D. Vance, who was a friend of Charlie Kirk, took over an episode and hosted Turning Point. And he had a lot to say. And what he said, which I'll play later in this episode, I will say that I personally agree and both disagree with. And we'll get to that. But the other thing I want to talk about, and what I'm going to start with, that's going to tie all this together somehow. I don't know how, but in the end, we're going to speak about Israel. And remember what I just stated earlier, that there were these conspiracies going around that Israel may be involved, that people are pointing fingers at Israel when it comes to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So I'm not sure that is quite true. But Israel isn't doing itself any favors. In light of everything that's been happening in Gaza, they just leveled another section of Gaza, giving these people mere 10 minutes, 15 minutes to clear out before they launched more bombs, leveled more buildings. And again, I don't want to talk about right now specifically what's going on in Gaza, because I have my opinions. My opinions are that Israel has a right to hunt down Hamas and end this terrorist organization. But I've also questioned whether or not Israel has gone too far. I've also have empathy for those stuck in the middle who are trapped in what is considered Palestine. Well, really Gaza, the Gaza Strip, because they can't leave. Israel controls the borders. And the southern border is controlled by Egypt. Egypt themselves are not even letting Palestinians or the people of Gaza or Gazans escape or leave. So, on the one hand, we can absolutely blame Israel for going too far. On the other, we have Egypt, who doesn't want Gazans to escape and get out of the Gaza Strip because they're in fear of terrorists sneaking out of Gaza and embedding themselves into Egypt and causing more trouble, which has happened before in the past. We also don't see countries like Jordan reaching out their hand to say, listen, we get it, Israel. You want to take out Hamas. Let us take the good people, the people caught in the middle, out, and we'll give them shelter here in Palestine. They're not offering to do so either. There isn't one Arab nation that has actually stood up to say, we will jump in and we're going to help the people of Gaza, which are being considered the Palestinians, and harboring them and taking them out of this horrible situation. Now, it also can be argued that it's not their responsibility, that Israel themselves are solely responsible for what's happening. All of this while Israel is constantly under attack from other areas by proxies funded by Iran, Hamas, which is supported by Iran, which is what led to the tensions earlier this year, and why the U.S. got involved to bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities, or the alleged facilities. And since then, Iran has quieted down, as would be expected. So let's talk about what Israel's done recently that is also, I mean, let me just say this, makes it harder to stand in their corner as of late because they decided to take out Hamas leaders in a mission that in and of itself was not successful in what they intended to do, but did kill a few leaders. The issue with what they did is where they chose to strike to eliminate these said targets. And that is where this whole argument to stand by every single action Israel does, which I don't believe we should stand by every single action. I'm going to point out that I'm not anti-Israel or anti-Semitic or anti-Jew. I don't believe the Jews are behind every single conspiracy and war within the world, as some people do, like Stu Peters, or to some extent, maybe even Owen Schroyer, but I give Owen Schroyer a lot more credit. But what they did is they launched a strike. They launched a strike in Doha city in Qatar. So Doha in Qatar, a sovereign nation, a nation that is also an ally of the U.S., by the way, and has been considered a special ally, special non-NATO ally, just as Israel is, by the way. Israel decided we're going to do what we want to do at all costs, and we're going to take out Hamas no matter where they are. And so they decided to launch a strike against Hamas leaders in a building in Doha, in Qatar, which violates Qatar's sovereignty. Israel violated Qatar's airspace. Israel launched an attack, regardless of if it was Hamas or not. We can consider this to be an attack against Qatar, against Qatar's sovereignty, against another ally of the United States of America. Qatar's significance in all of this, by the way, just to give you a little backstory, is Israel is not happy with Qatar for the reason being that Hamas has actually harbored, I would say harbored, more like hosted Hamas, or at least Hamas's political arm. And they've done so, it has been said, since 2012. But what's important here is it was also at the request of the United States of America. Now, why? Well, the reason why is because this allowed communication and negotiations, a place that we can call neutral. So Qatar has become a mediator in the Middle East between Hamas, Israel, the United States, and any other nations who have an interest in what's happening within this conflict. Qatar is considered a mediator. Qatar has been hosting Hamas at the request of the United States. Again, all done so that there was a neutral ground, a neutral place where negotiations can happen, talks can happen. This is well known. Israel knows this. But they chose, regardless of the ally status of Qatar, regardless of whether or not the U.S. themselves are involved, and said, look, we need a neutral place to be able to talk to this body, these people, Hamas. Yeah, they're terrorists. They are classified as terrorists by most everybody in the world, except for a small few. But still, we need to be able to talk. The United States needs to be able to talk to them on neutral ground to be able to negotiate again. And I know I've said it more than once already within just a short time period, but we need to communicate with them because Hamas, outside of being designated a terrorist organization, is also the designated leadership of Gaza. Hamas was voted in as the leading organization, the representative of the people of Gaza. So while they are extreme, while they are terrorists, they're also the leaders of Gaza. So, yeah, we need to be able to communicate. Israel needs to be able to communicate. Any nation in the Middle East needs to be able to communicate with them. And so Qatar's role was exactly that of neutral ground, supported by the U.S. Qatar is an ally of the United States of America. And more significantly, Qatar is where U.S. Central Command has the largest military base in the Middle East. It's an extremely strategic base. It is quite large. We have a huge military presence there where we provide air support, intelligence. There are operations that are managed from out of that particular base. And so Israel's actions also put the United States' base presence, having one of the largest militaries in the Middle East, in jeopardy. What's interesting is that Mossad, what is considered the secret, the CIA, I guess, of Israel, Mossad, a very, very, very well organized institution, very good at surveillance, very good at intelligence. In fact, Mossad has provided a lot of very, very important, very meaningful intelligence to the United States as well. Mossad themselves had advised against this action of these Hamas leaders in Qatar. I think it was originally proposed, I'm open to correction on this, that it was asked that there'd be a ground operation done to eliminate these Hamas leaders. Mossad said no. That is, we advise against that. We don't think that's a good idea. For many of the reasons I mentioned earlier. It's a sovereign nation, Qatar. You can't just go and do whatever you want in terms of military operations without Qatar's involvement or Qatar's knowledge. And that's the other caveat to all of this. Qatar didn't know this was happening. So it seems like even within Israel and the Israeli government, there were questions as to whether or not this operation should be carried out because they knew they're not just attacking Hamas, they're attacking a sovereign nation. They're attacking a nation that is an ally of the United States, a nation that hosts one of the largest United States military bases in the Middle East. But yet Netanyahu couldn't hold himself back. He was behind it. And so the strike happened. And now let's just say the Arab nations are pissed. They're pissed off, as they should be. So here's from the BBC. Diplomacy ruins after Israel strikes Hamas leaders and Qatar. Here's another headline here. Israel threatens Hamas wherever they are as Qatar hosts summit. Now, I didn't bring that up yet. Due to what happened in Doha, Qatar went ahead and called an emergency Arab Islamic summit. Even Egypt is involved in this emergency meeting. And Netanyahu doesn't seem like he wants to let up on anything regarding chasing down Hamas no matter where they are. Now, I don't have a problem with Israel eliminating Hamas, but the way they're going about it, it's a bit unhinged. It's not diplomatic. and it's a threat to other sovereign nations at this point. And I've said this before in past episodes, and I really don't care how you take it if you disagree with me. But due to Israel's actions, they are now, once again, as they have in the past, they're putting our relationships in jeopardy. I say our because I'm an American. I live in the United States of America. And they're putting the relationships of the United States of America within the Middle East in jeopardy, with a sovereign nation who's hosting our largest military base, a very strategic base. Now, with all of this going on, this summit that was called, I want to point, to who was involved in this summit, this emergency Arab Islamic meeting to discuss how do they move forward. Because now even they are in a sticky situation here. I'm sure they all want to retaliate against Israel, but they don't want to do so at the threat of the U.S. getting involved to protect Israel. And I'm not sure if that is what the U.S. will do, because Israel, while they are, or they have been called our greatest ally, at least in the Middle East, we also have relations with these other countries that were part of the summit. Here's some of those countries here. I hope you can read this on the screen clearly. Obviously, Qatar. They're the ones who called this emergency summit. We have Saudi Arabia, who we do have relations with and are allies with. Egypt, who we have relations with. Jordan, again, another country we have relations with. Bahrain, who we absolutely have relations with. There's the Palestinian Authority. There's Syria. There's Lebanon. There's Iraq, who we've gone in. Obviously, the Iraq war was an abhorrent and long war, but we went in to help the Iraqi people. And so we do have relations with Iraq. We also have the United Arab Emirates. These are all countries in which we try to have a semblance of a relationship, some closer than others, with some of these nations or these countries. And that list I read were just the more well-known, prominent, larger countries, but there's also the Arab League members that were present, which are Kuwait, Oman, and the UAE, who also participated in this. So that's a significant list of representatives in this summit who got together to discuss the future of relationships when it comes to Israel. And also our relationship, the relationship of the United States with these countries in the Middle East. Here we are from The Guardian. Gulf leaders call on Trump, and I knew this would happen. They call on Trump to rein in Israel after Qatar's emergency summit. Of course they do. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Let's scroll down a little bit. Read a little bit from this article here. Gulf leaders meeting at an emergency summit in Qatar have called on the Trump administration to use its leverage to rein in Israel after the unprecedented Israeli attempt last Tuesday, which I forgot to mention, by the way. This whole attack, I'm recording this on September 15th, 2025. This attack was last Tuesday from this date. Very recent. So this is this unprecedented attempt, which happened last Tuesday, to assassinate Hamas negotiators in Doha. Now, they killed and injured some, but they didn't get the targets they wanted. And that's why I stated earlier that this wasn't the successful mission that they were hoping for. Okay, reading on. Speaking after the meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council, or also known as the GCC, the group's Secretary General, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. I'm probably not, but just let me leave it there. This group's Secretary General said, "We expect our strategic partners in the United States to use their influence on Israel in order for it to stop this behavior. They have leverage and influence on Israel. It's about time that this leverage and influence be used. The attack killed 5 Hamas officials and was denounced on Monday by Qatar's emir and has been said to be a cowardly and treacherous attack on, as I mentioned earlier, Qatar's sovereignty. There you have it. Exactly what I was alluding to earlier before I read the article. I'll just kind of saving that a bit. Now these Arab allies, these Arab nation states who have a relationship with the United States, they feel screwed. They're like, what the fuck do we do here? Israel violated our sovereignty, or at least Qatar's sovereignty. And now none of the Arab nations that have a relationship with the United States feel safe from Israel. And so they're calling on the United States to rein in Israel, who's acting like a little hot-tempered child at this point. Of course you have a right to defend yourself, Israel. Nobody in the right mind would think that a nation state doesn't have a right to protect themselves from a heinous attack. And I will also point out that these attacks are continuous against Israel. But everybody is questioning whether or not the tactics that are being used, are they humane? Is it too much? In Gaza, we can definitely ask the question as to whether or not Israel is going too far and their approach is too much. Of course, we can ask that question. But I still stand by Israel's right to root out and eliminate Hamas. I want to make that very clear. But attacking sovereign nations, not directly, but you're encroaching on, crossing their borders, their airspace, to carry out clandestine missions. Well, I guess this wasn't so clandestine. It was pretty public, right? But carry these missions out because, Israel did take responsibility for it, so they did not hide it. Is it right for them to do this? Is it right for them to carry out their mission at all costs to eliminate Hamas by violating the sovereignty of these other nation states that also have relationships with the United States of America? And as I said earlier, Qatar, our largest military base in the Middle East, is hosted by Qatar. Now they're calling for Donald Trump to rein in Israel. Will he? Will the United States put their foot down? Will we put our foot down when it comes to Israel and their actions? I think it's time. I think it's long overdue. I really do. Again, I'm not anti-Israel. I just want to make that clear. I know a lot of people are. A lot of people hate Israel. I don't. Sorry, I don't. I believe that they should root out Hamas and destroy them. I believe they should protect themselves. But we also have to call them out when they're doing too much, when it's going too far. And it's not just this attack on Qatar sovereign soil that is too far. The constant pictures and videos and reports of what's going on in Gaza also suggest it's too far. It's too much. I know it's hard to be strategic in such a small strip, the Gaza Strip. It's not that big. Not too many places for people to go. But is it right to level entire cities, residences? I don't know that it is. With all the training that modern military in this world, any modern military has, but especially if we're talking about Israel, they have their own special forces, their own special operations. They were so strategic not long ago with their pager bombs. Remember that? They were able to find these Hamas leaders, Hamas affiliates, and somehow kill these people and really seriously injure them using their own pagers that they have on them by just sending a call, and they exploded. they have shown that they can be very strategic and precise, but they're not showing that in Gaza. And after what happened with Qatar, this is getting, as I said, harder and harder to say, look, Israel, we're on your side. It's getting harder to explain away their actions. I think that the United States of America does need to rein them in. I think Trump needs to sit down with Netanyahu and have a talk. But many will counter that argument or that statement by saying, well, Israel controls the United States. AIPAC controls the United States. I'm not buying that. They have influence for sure, but they don't control the United States. They just don't. And so you can just get that idea out your head. Now, is it plausible that Israel has dirt on some of our leaders? Yeah, sure it is. That's a tactic as old as time. I'm sure we have dirt on their leaders. I'm sure we have a lot of dirt in Netanyahu. I mean, much of what Israel has is because of the United States. They have an amazing intel unit. Well, so does the United States of America. They have weapons. So does the United States of America. Much of the technology that Israel has is because of U.S. involvement. Much of the funding that goes to their military operations comes from the United States of America at a minimum dollar amount of $3.2 billion a year. That doesn't sound like a lot because, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. But that's a consistent amount and does not represent the total amount spent every year. Now, I'm not going to get into that on this show. I've done it in the past. I've already exposed how much money we've been sending to Israel. And it's not just the minimum $3.2 billion a year, by the way. That much I can tell you for a fact. So as much as we want to stand behind Israel, and Israel's our ally, they're not making it easy for the United States to continue to stand by their side with actions like what they just did against Qatar, or at least the operation they carried out on Qatar's sovereign soil, who again is also a U.S. ally, who again hosts the largest military base the United States of America has in the Middle East. And while all this is going on, today, as of this day, September 15th, there's an event going on in Israel where Netanyahu obviously is a part of. It's called 50 States, One Israel. I believe I got that right. Where 250 of our lawmakers and delegates of the United States are actually physically in Israel, showing support for Israel. Now, the 50 states within this title of the event are actually literally representative of the 50 states in the United States of America. The whole point of this event is to show that we have bipartisan support for Israel. We got your back, Israel. And it's not just the United States government saying it. The statement here is that every state in America has your back. 50 states, all 50 states of America support you, Israel. And we're going to show that support by physically sending 250 lawmakers and delegates over to Israel to sit in this conference and just pine over Israel, to show Israel how important they are to us, to show them that we stand by Israel. This conference is going on right now, right after they carried out this mission to eliminate Hamas leaders, which I don't care about that, by the way, whatsoever. Personally, I just don't. But on sovereign soil, on the sovereign soil of Qatar, a U.S. ally, and again, where our largest strategic military base in the Middle East resides, does this make any sense? Does it make any fucking sense whatsoever? No. I'm answering it for you. No, it fucking doesn't. It doesn't. This is all strategically planned, it looks like to me. It's like Israel saying, we're going to do what we want. You can't fucking do anything about it. This conference was planned in advance. Israel knew very, very well that we're heading over there. Our delegates and representatives were heading over there, all 250 of them, to Israel for this event. And what do? They carry out a strategic strike against an ally, at least violating the sovereignty of one of our allies, Qatar, who was propositioned and put into place to be a mediator between Israel, the United States, and whoever else, and the leadership of Hamas. Israel's not helping themselves. They're really not. By the way, I'm going to show you how big this base was in Qatar. So here's the base right here. And this is an old picture. This is from 2017. 2017. Let me click on this here. This is going to take us. This is an old article I looked at earlier. This is from 2017. That's what this picture is. So look at this base right here. You can see how large that is. And this is old picture again. And all reports are that this base literally just keeps expanding and getting larger and larger. We have a significant presence. Look at that. We have a significant presence there in Qatar that Israel is going out of their way to threaten. Well, getting back to this event that's being held. So here from the Jerusalem Post. Now, what I found interesting is I was looking up this 50 States, One Israel event, and I couldn't find much. Even on social media, there was some leaks here and there, but there wasn't like a specific website that would pop up. There wasn't anything from our government really announcing it. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I had a hard time finding it. I finally landed on this article from the Jerusalem Post in Israel. Here's the headline. Bipartisan U.S. support reminds Israel that true friends stand by us. Who are those true friends? The United States of America. Of course. Seeing bipartisan support from those attending the 50 States One Israel conference shows Israel's true friends stand by us. Continue reading this. At a time when Israel faces growing isolation around the world, the largest ever delegation of U.S. lawmakers representing all 50 states, and again, that's all 50 states of the United States of America. They arrived in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Gideon Saar both addressed the delegation at an event at the Foreign Ministry titled 50 States One Israel on Monday. Welcome to Jerusalem, the eternal capital of Israel. Speaking later to the Jerusalem Post, Hayat emphasized, and I probably pronounced that incorrectly. I'm not good at pronouncing these Middle Eastern names. In a period like this, seeing bipartisan support from all 50 U.S. states in a historic event unprecedented in Israel's history reminds us that in difficult moments, our true friends stand by our side. The U.S. lawmakers are in Israel for meetings with senior officials and tours across the country, underscoring their message that support for Israel in the U.S. is a matter of national consensus. Look at this picture here. Look at BB right here. Look at BB sitting in there. So this is Israel. Israel basically got U.S. support from 250 lawmakers and delegates to represent all 50 states, naming the damn event 50 States One Israel. This is literally them spitting in the face of every other country in the Middle East saying, no matter what you do, the United States has our back. That's what this event is. That's exactly what this event is. How much clearer can it be that we need to take Israel, sit them down, and have a mature conversation with them. Again, I support Israel as a sovereign nation. I do. I support their right to protect themselves. I support what they're doing in trying to root out Hamas. But I'm having a hard time arguing away their actions because I don't support all the methods and means that they're using to get there. They're being very very boisterous, very cocky in how they're going about things because they know they have the United States of America in their corner. But I think it's important that the United States of America stand up and show force and reinforce our relationship to everybody with Israel, but not at our own expense. As important as Israel is, because listen, they provide intelligence and military operational support in the Middle East that the United States needs. They offer technologies that are tested in actual real world conflict that we get data on. Israel is strategic, but so are our other allies in the Middle East. So is Qatar. The relationship that Israel is threatening right now. It's as if they're calling on the U.S. to make a choice now. They're forced to call the U.S. out because of what just happened. The other Arab nations are calling for the United States to reign in Israel directly. They're literally saying it. This isn't implied. The Middle East has always been a mess. It has always been a mess. It just has. But these recent events, it's not helping. It's not helping. And I think it's time to bend little Israel over our knee and give him a fucking spanking. And look, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that. Fine. Go ahead. Keyboard warrior away. Send your comments. Light up my social media. I don't really give a fuck. You got to call things how you see it. You really do. It doesn't mean that I believe Israel is the problem behind every conflict and conspiracy in the fucking world. I don't believe Israel rules the United States and controls us. You got to understand a lot of what's going on and why we stand with Israel to the extent that we do is because of how strategic the relationship is. We don't have a tighter relationship in the Middle East than with anybody. Israel's it. Israel's it. Regardless. It doesn't matter. Saudi Arabia, not nearly as close. Believe me. Qatar, not as close. Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East. And yeah, we need that. We absolutely need that presence. But should we not start looking at another ally, another country, another sovereign nation in the Middle East that we can also create, if not a greater, at least an equally important relationship with? We have to take the leverage away from Israel. We absolutely do. They need to understand their place. Not that we're their father figure, we're not their big brother. We're none of that. The United States is its own nation. We do what the fuck we want. And we've shown that to the world, good or bad. We have. And I think it's time to show Israel that we're not going to be coerced into trying to save their ass because they think they can do whatever they want because they believe that they got the United States of America by the balls. I don't want to see any more leaders of the United States going to Israel to touch their fucking wall. Let me make it very clear what that Western Wall represents. It's a remnant representing the Second Temple that still stands. The Second Temple that they want to rebuild. The Second Temple that they want to resurrect that was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. It's considered one of the most holiest places. It is believed that the presence of God, if that's what they call him, the spiritual presence, remains in the walls that still stand. And that is why that Western Wall is significant. It is considered the holiest of holiest places in Israel. And our people from the United States of America, who aren't even Jewish, by the way, go there. They have to hide their crosses, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the videos. They have to hide their crosses because, Jews don't believe in the cross. They don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, the second coming. None of it. They don't believe in any of that. But we're always told that from a religious perspective, that we are very close and tied together because of the fact that Jesus was a Jew. All right, sure, whatever. But their beliefs don't necessarily align entirely with that of Christians, Catholics, etc. They just don't. So why are our leaders kowtowing to Israel by going over to Israel to touch this fucking wall? I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I'm sorry. I understand the significance of it. I understand the historical significance. I would like to view it because of its historical significance. But I'm not a Jew. And if I was a Catholic, I wouldn't hide my cross. I wouldn't hide my faith just so I can, show my allegiance and pledge my allegiance to Israel, which is really what this ritual seems to be. I think the United States, I'm sorry, but our government needs to pull our head out of our ass. And when it comes to U.S.-Israeli relations, we need to treat them equally, as equal as we treat our other allies. It's just time to call them on their bullshit. It just really is. I'm not saying sever ties. I'm absolutely not saying that. I want everybody to understand that is not what I'm advocating for. What I'm advocating for is a true America First agenda. We can't be led by the collar like a damn dog as a symbol, like a pit bull standing behind its owner or in front of its owner, so that they can Israel themselves can just stir up shit. And then when someone speaks up, they go, "Get him, boy. Get him, boy." That dog being the United States of America. That's what it feels like lately. It's actually been that way for quite some time. But look, I know a lot of you out there may not agree with anything I just said. And that's fine. We can have our difference of opinion. And I'm not saying to abandon Israel. I'm just making that very clear. I'm not saying that. But we need to evaluate the relationship. And we need to show strength in ourselves, in our own nation. Because what's going on lately with what Israel's been doing and how they are jeopardizing our relationships, or at least calling them into question, that's something that we can't have. It's just not. Now, getting back to this 50 states, one summit bullshit, Netanyahu, there's a clip from a speech here I have. Let me go ahead and try to blow this up here. Here, let me switch over so you guys can see this. So here's Netanyahu giving a speech. I want you to listen to this.
I just said this in another meeting, and they said, "Oh, Israel is isolated. Israel can't break out of the siege." And I said, "We will." Some of them have stopped weapon component shipments. Can we get out of this? Yes, we can. We're pretty good at producing weapons. Like intelligence, we share both with the United States. A good chunk of your intel.
All right, so I'm going to pause that for a sec. So Netanyahu telling everybody, he wants everybody to understand, we're okay. Regardless of the boycotts, we're fine. But we're extremely good at making weapons. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but that was kind of like a threat to everybody saying that, no matter what you do, we're not going anywhere. And we're going to be stronger. And we're going to make even more weapons to combat all of you. Maybe it's just me. That's just kind of how I took it. But I'm going to continue to play this. You form your own opinion. You form your own opinion. And after watching the rest of this, if you want to go ahead and give me your comments and your 2 cents and your assessment on it, go ahead. But you know where my website is, worldablaze.podcast.com. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads. You can find me at Fonts Ablaze. In fact, it's right up here on the screen, right down there. If you have something to say, go ahead and say it. Happy to have open dialogue. But let me continue playing this.
And our weapon systems we share with the United States. We're tremendously appreciative of the bipartisan support in military matters to Israel in previous years and today as well. But do you have cell phones? You have cell phones here? No? You're holding a piece of Israel right there. You know that? I mean, a lot of the cell phones, the medicines, the foods, you eat cherry tomatoes. You know where that was made? I don't like cherry tomatoes, but it's an Israel. What can I do? It's an Israeli product, as are so many other things. And I think this serves for the betterment of all mankind and womankind. I think that is Israel's unknown contribution. But we can make things, we can produce things. We cherish the fact that we have the constancy of American support despite the attempts to erode it. And we'll continue to work to make sure that that continues on both sides of the aisle. It's very important for us. But equally, we will eventually create the independence that we need so those in Western Europe who think they can deny us things will not succeed.
Okay. So that speech was given at this 50 States, One Israel's event. There's a few statements he made that kind of stood out to me. We're very good at making weapons. That cell phone you have in your hand. We have a hand on that, right? You can take that a few ways. It's a nod to the technology that they're able to produce. It's a nod to their security forces, nod to Mossad. Basically, no matter where you are, we're going to be able to find you, spy on you. And to me, from what I heard, it's kind of a callback to what they did with the pagers, how they were able to pull that off with all the people who were affiliated with Hamas. Pagers blowing up, killing people, maiming people. He's threatening European nations, saying, no matter what you do, the United States is in our corner. Everything I spoke about earlier, Netanyahu just reinforced in that speech. They're not hiding it. He could talk all calm. He could be eloquent all he wants. He could be funny. It doesn't take away from the fact that they appear to be very emboldened in their actions and have no regard for anyone but themselves. Again, I think they should defend themselves. I think that Hamas does need to be eradicated. But we do have to be logical. We do have to be critical in our thinking. And we do have to take a step back and stop blindly reinforcing how they're going about doing this. We need to hold Israel accountable. We need to have them pump the brakes a bit. They brag about everything they can do, how strategic, how intelligent they are, how how precise they can be in their operations and all the stuff that they can offer the world and what they actually offer the United States. But it doesn't seem like they're being very strategic in how they're handling everything in the way of chasing down Hamas. Violating the sovereignty of Qatar is not strategic. Leveling cities in Gaza is not strategic. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's a part of their strategy. Their actions. It's getting harder and harder to say, I stand with Israel. It also further feeds into conspiracies. Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, I don't believe, was killed by Israel. So far, all we know about what happened to Charlie Kirk is he was killed by some psychotic nut job who was pissed off that he couldn't debate him, from what I've seen in previous videos. Charlie Kirk did call Israel out on their actions, but in later episodes, before his death, also spoke in support of Israel. Both things can be true at the same time. You can be critical of Israel and also support them. It's okay to call Israel out on the actions that are obviously heinous, that are obviously wrong, and correct them. Just as the world loves to do the U.S., the world has no problem being critical of the United States of America whatsoever, but yet it's wrong to be critical of Israel. Many people are critical of the United States of America, but still keep the relationships open with us. We still find ways to move forward, but it seems like we can't apply that same principle to Israel. Doesn't seem like anybody can. And so, as far as the theory, conspiracy of Israel taking out Charlie Kirk, it's ridiculous to me. Why would Israel, think about this nation state of Israel, zero in on one guy with a mouth? Sure, he was intelligent. Sure, he knew how to argue his point. But why would a nation specifically seek out to kill one person, a United States citizen, a person who is revered by the current political party in charge, by the way, Republican Party? Why would Israel risk their relationship with the United States of America to do this? I know. Here we go. Let's talk about JFK. Let's talk about everything else that Israel has allegedly done and been involved with. Sure, we can go down those rabbit holes, but let's stay current. Let's stay on track here. Charlie Kirk was killed by a psychotic nut job. And what's been coming out lately with this whole thing that happened to Charlie Kirk is it's becoming very partisan. People are pointing fingers at one another. I said this before, and I hate it. It's like we're watching an NFL game or something. They're treating this like a team sport, and what I don't like is how people are blanketing others, capturing them, and just throwing them into a group, compartmentalizing everybody, so they can say it's you against me, right versus left, Republican versus Democrat. And we need to be stronger in our actions. We need to take action. Some of the talk out there has been very borderline. Well, actually, has been outright an incitement to violence. That's not right. Is that what we need? A civil war? Is that what we're trying to push for? Is as a people, really? Think about this. Most of you pussies out there have never even been in a fight. I'm saying it right now. Most of you pussies, I said it again, pussies, have never even been in a fight. Have you ever been on the other side of a gun? Have you? You ever had a gun pulled on you? I have. How about a knife? No? I have. You ever been in a real fight? I've been in plenty. That's how I grew up. I guarantee you're not ready. I guarantee it. All these people on social media that are calling for the elimination and killing of Republicans, there are people who have literally, I don't like. I can show you examples, and I may show you examples here in a bit. But everything I'm saying, you can verify and look up yourself on Instagram, on X, on TikTok, wherever. It's out there. And at the same time, you have Republicans, alleged Republicans or MAGA or whatever you want to call people on the other side, calling for the accountability of those on the left or the far left. And this has turned into a us versus them moment. A moment that should have absolutely brought the country together, and realizing that regardless of our differences, killing someone over having a discussion, challenging narratives, is never a call for the elimination of that person's life, just as it was not acceptable whatsoever when it came to Martin Luther King, who was assassinated for what can be said to be a similar thing. Not the exact same message, admittedly, but calling for equality, calling for united people, calling for a better America. Martin Luther King was killed for that. Is that what Charlie Kirk was calling for? Charlie Kirk believed he did. Charlie Kirk believed that everything he was talking about was about making America better, bringing people together, getting back to reinforcing and fixing the moral fabric of America. And much of what Charlie Kirk believed in was reinforced by the fact that he was a Christian. And while we all don't agree on religion, maybe you don't believe in Christianity, you might be Hindu, might be Buddhist, whatever. The principles in which he believed in that reinforced what he spoke of, most all of them were basic humanitarian principles that we can't disagree with or dismiss. I have a clip of J.D. Vance, who took over for Charlie Kirk. So here's J.D. Vance. And here's part of his closing statement on Real America's Voice, where he hosted in place of Charlie Kirk, his friend.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
Okay. There you have it. J.D. Vance. Our Vice President of the United States, you can tell he's very upset. And what he said, I agree with a lot of it. I have questions, though. And this is what I'm hoping doesn't happen. Yeah, we need accountability. Yes, we need to root out the institutions who are deliberately going out of their way to tear out the fabric, to divide the United States of America by putting these subversive messages and narratives of hate into the young minds of Americans. My question being, though, is how are we going to define these groups, these peoples, these organizations? Because unless we have restraint, unless we are truly nonpartisan in this approach, it can be very easy to just lash out at everybody who doesn't think the way that we do. I do, or you do, anybody does. And while J.D. Vance is clearly upset and mostly correct, I hope that emotions are not the driving factor in deciding how we're going to hold certain peoples accountable. That the assessments of who and what groups are applied equally. Now, I understand what he was saying. We can't be united with people who cheer the death of Charlie Kirk or any individual for that matter. We can't be united with people who abuse children, and we can't be united with those who are deliberately going out of the way to write smear campaigns against other individuals that are absolutely untrue. I understand it. I do. But we can't let our emotions get in the way here either. We got to be very careful how we approach this. Should we step up and really start holding people accountable? Yeah, I think it's long fucking overdue. Not holding people accountable is what got us here. Not standing up for morals or principles that this nation was built on. That's what got us here. And so, in light of Charlie Kirk's death, as I said earlier, it has unfortunately divided us more than it has brought us together. And the unfortunate truth is we have too many podcasters, social media personalities, and armchair experts out there trying to get attention and using Charlie Kirk's death as a way to capitalize, get more likes, clicks, and downloads so they can get more monetization, make more money. Everyone's an expert. They don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Everybody wants to be first. Everybody wants to be the person that panders to the world and says, look at my hot take. Look how intelligent and wonderful I am. But most of you didn't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk. Most of you didn't even know who he was, or if you heard of him, didn't watch anything that he put out, didn't listen to him. Many of you who are kicking and screaming are just looking for an excuse to kick and scream and lash out and pull the whole, oh, I told you so. I told you those fucking people over there. Look at them. They're the ones. And so people on the right have come together to put their own form of cancel culture together. And they're finding people on social media who have celebrated, who have made videos, a lot of really abhorrent videos, by the way, praising the death of Charlie Kirk. And so far, there's been, last time I looked, I think close to 1,000 people who've been fired because what's happening is the people are policing these individuals. They are looking for their posts of them dancing and celebrating and saying, fuck Charlie Kirk dead, shot in the head, one down, millions to go. These are all things that are out there, all on social media. Again, I don't have to show all of this. You can look it up yourself. And I want my audience to understand that that's a constant theme with me. Yes, I do research. Yes, I do deep dives. Yes, I do all the reading of the data. I do. But I think at some point, I'm just going to lead you there, and it's up to you to make up your own mind by capitalizing and further researching and verifying what I say. Because that's important. It's important not to take me at face value, and it's important not to take CNN and MSNBC and NBC and anybody else at face value. It's important you don't take Joe Rogan at face value. It's important you don't take, well, this one should be obvious, but it's important you don't take Alex Smith at, or Alex Jones, I mean, at face value. Question us. Question me. I want to make it clear. You should. But getting back to my statements about what's going on social media, unless you live under a rock and intentionally tune out the world, people of the right, people who call themselves MAGA, people who call themselves conservative, I don't even think they know which label really appropriately fits them, are going out and looking for all these posts of people dancing and celebrating, getting in the face of other people. There's vigils. There's vigils for Charlie Kirk. One was in Idaho that made the news, and the other one in Arizona, where these anti-Charlie Kirk people, or just leftists in general, went out of their way to cause a scene. One of the people in Arizona, look up this video, literally ran through their memorial trying to destroy what they put together. The one in Idaho, the individual rode up on it was a scooter or one of those moped type things. I don't know what you call them. And just started shouting and causing a scene and had to be removed by the police. These people are going out of their way to post these things. Proud, smiling. There's even another social media post of a young girl. The mother goes up and says, "Oh, guess what? What good news there is out there? Guess what happened?" And the girl's all giddy. Goes, "Charlie Kirk's dead? Oh my God, he's dead." Yeah, that's real. That happened. This girl was probably 10, 8, I don't know. She wasn't old at all. How do you think a child thinks that way? How do you think they get to thinking that way? In this particular case, I think it was coming from the parents, coming from the schools, the universities, etc. Well, she's too young to go to university, but you get my point. This is what's going on. This is what's going on out there. And so people of the right are holding these people accountable. They're finding out where they work. They're finding out what they do for a living. They're reporting them to their employers, and they're getting fired. And then they're going back on social media and crying because they don't believe it should have happened to them. Just as the left had did or done to conservatives a few years ago by doxing people and trying to get them fired and canceling them because Trump was elected. You guys all remember that one? No? Short memories? Yeah, that happened. And this isn't a tit for tat thing. Look, two wrongs do not make a right. Two wrongs absolutely do not make a right. So, do I agree with what's going on with having these people lose their jobs? Well, yes and no. I mean, in some cases, maybe it's justified, but is it really? I think we let these things play out. We shouldn't go out of our way. We shouldn't go out of our way to make these people's lives any more miserable than they already are. Their employers will find out. They'll find out. But sitting there, I think there was called a Charlie Kirk data collection or something like that on X. You know what? I'm actually going to look that up because I think I think this is important. Let me see if I can find this. Charlie Kirk data. Where is it at? I can't find it. Anyway, this account was literally keeping a list, a spreadsheet of everybody, and keeping a tally of how many people were fired and how many people they need to go after. If you're a conservative and you're on the right, I'm going to tell you right now, you're literally doing nothing but mirroring everything that you said was wrong about the left. Step back and ask yourself, is this what Charlie Kirk wanted? Would he literally, as a Christian, want you to continue to divide and stir up hate and spread division amongst your fellow Americans? And people of the left, I'm going to call you out. If you've got away with so much for so long, with all the bullshit you've been talking about, all the stuff you were trying to push in school curriculum, the support of, I mean, look, I'm not going to get into it. All your woke agenda, your DEI bullshit, how we all need to have white guilt. I mean, I can keep, there's a laundry list of dumb fuckery that the left was behind for many years. So you're not absolutely any better whatsoever. But I'm going to caution the people of the right to not become that which you yourself do not approve of. So I'm going to end this show here. If you truly want to honor Charlie Kirk, then honor Charlie Kirk for who he was and what he actually represented, which was open discussion, challenging narratives, and trying to make America a better place. That's the Charlie Kirk that we need to remember. And that's the Charlie Kirk, the principles of which he represented, that needs to bring America together.
Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.